Well, if we take it back to the Kent State game and the Golden Flashes, the mighty Golden Flashes, where's my helmet? Yes. I was just talking to a Georgia guest, and we were doing a look at Georgia, and they've got Kent State coming up in a couple of weeks, and I warned them about the mighty Golden Flashes. But a quick 3 on the board for Kent State, and then it was all Oklahoma from there with 33 on the board. Your takeaways, anything meaningful from the Kent State game?
Yeah, no, certainly. I think there was some. I think there was some meaningful things that you take away from that. As I mentioned to you, I think last week, Mark, when you talk about game one, there's some things, and you would expect some some improvement from game one to game two, and whether it's an individual or a unit or one side of the ball or the entire team. I think what for me and for some, it's not as big of a concern, and so we'll see. I mean, it's not anything that any fan should panic, but I think there's some concern that needs to be at least brought up or understood around Oklahoma's offensive line right now. There's two, they weren't bad against UTEP, ran for a little bit over 250 yards, but there was times where they weren't able to push the defensive line off the ball from time to time, and so you bring that forward 1 week, and the offensive line, the first half was just bad. It was just bad. Oklahoma had 7 rushing yards at halftime. They weren't able to get anything consistently going in terms of a drive until that last 2 minutes of the game, or 2 minutes of the half, when they had that 2-minute drill where they scored that touchdown, the long touchdown to Marvin Mims. But I think that's something that's of concern. Now, I think there's some things that you can take solace in if you're an Oklahoma fan. Obviously, this is a new offense, a new scheme, a new blocking mentality and scheme from that perspective. So I think that's something that obviously can be considered. You've got Wanye Morris, who was out, and because of that you've shifted players into certain positions that maybe they weren't ready for or not comfortable in. So Wanye Morris should be back for Oklahoma this week. So we'll see how that continues to go. I mean, I think it was I think teams were really just kind of taking turns, right? I mean, some of these players were taking turns not doing their job. So I think, and this is the time, this is what's happening with Oklahoma's offensive line, seems to be over the last few years, as they struggle up front early on, and then they start to kind of get it going, later in the season. But don't have a ton of respect, at least at this point, for this Nebraska defense. Now, maybe it can be a little bit better, but from what I've seen over 3 games, hasn't played extremely well. So I think they're going to have much better athletes than UTEP and Kent State did, but then they got it going. Oklahoma got it going there in the second half, played really, really well from that end of the second quarter till through the end of the third. Had an opportunity to get it up into 40 points, but lost a little bit of their mentality there towards the fourth quarter. So, and I think the one thing that you can continue to be happy about is the way the defense is playing. They missed some tackles in the open field, but and I saw the stat, I'm trying to remember when the first time that Oklahoma had held an FBS team without a touchdown in a game, and in 5-10 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. So they continue to play well. They're blocking well. They're tackling well. Had a couple of times where they missed a couple of tackles, but I think they've played much, much better defensively, and they've still not really shown anything, Mark. They still have been very base in their coverage, and the defensive line seems to be getting better and better over these first couple of weeks, and then you look at they're playing well at all layers in the defense. Billy Bowman's playing extremely well from a safety perspective. Then you got Danny Stutzman's playing well, and then Reggie Grimes is continuing to play really, really well. So they're for once, Oklahoma, and it's 2 games and it's against 2 subpar opponents, but they performed at the level that they need to, and now you've got a really big jump in terms of playmaking ability on the offensive side. So I think you're happy with the defense. I think the offense continues to be one of those offenses right now, Mark, where they are really, really good in stretches, and then they are really average in stretches. They started off the game extremely hot against UTEP, and then, kind of middle second quarter, middle third quarter, they kind of went into a little bit of a lull, and had some breakdowns and blocking and protection and things like that. And so, and then obviously you saw the same thing for a majority of the first half against Kent State. So I think that's not going to be something that I think that you'll continue to see. I think it's supposed to it'll get better and better in terms of that consistency on the offensive side of the ball. But right now it's a little bit inconsistent, and you can't have when you're playing on the road, particularly when you're playing on the road against in a hostile environment against a really good team, then you have you can't have a quarter or half a quarter where you're going 3 and out. And if you're running as fast as Oklahoma runs offensively, then you have to be able to sustain those drives and that through a 4-quarter game.